This is Pete, one of many animatronics I built over the past few years for my pirate-themed haunt, BeauHaunt. Originally, he made his debut in our front yard display in California, but when my family and I moved, I needed a clever way of integrating him into our new setup. You can find Powder Keg Pete in our signature walkthrough attraction, Dead Man's Passage. Being one of my most advanced and fan favorite props in BeauHaunt, this figure needed to integrate mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, and show control software to create an immersive animated scene. My name is Owen, and this is Behind the BeauHaunt, Episode 1. Powder Keg Pete is a skeleton pirate sitting atop an iron cannon mounted on a gunpowder barrel. This character holds a sword and a cannonball while commanding his crew to fight the bad guys. This animatronic includes a modified 3-axis like skull system with synchronized jaw movement. However, I cannot take credit for this design, as Cat's Menagerie used this design previously and I adopted it and modified it to fit my skeletons. Huge thanks to her and her amazing work though. Earlier this year, I upgraded all of our animatronic figures to coreless digital servos, which offer quieter and smoother performance compared to the previous actuators, which were brushed servos. Each pirate, like Powder Keg Pete, has 3 axes of motion: roll, pitch, and yaw. However, these axes are limited because I'm only using 2 servos, mounted to the shoulders of the skeleton. These axes connect to the head via RC nylon control horns and push rods. For the jaw's actuation, a digital servo is embedded inside the skull and connected to a pivot-style joint mounted on the inside of the jaw. All servos are driven by an SSC32U controller by Linux Motion. I typically use channels 0 to 2. I chose this board because it works universally with most of the hobbyist software I use and can control up to 32 independent servos simultaneously. One of the biggest mistakes I made was assuming I could control all of the pirates from a single control board. While this is technically possible, it prevents each pirate from running its routine simultaneously. When I record a pirate's animation in Track School, the software generates servo data, which I then compile in VSA to run a pirate's routine. As the BeauHaunt evolved and we moved to Oregon, the pirates were integrated throughout the haunt, which made controlling them from a single board impractical due to the need for independent triggering. If I attempted to run 2 props simultaneously with 2 different VSA routines while they were connected to the same servo board, the computer would generate a serial command error. This happened because the system was trying to send 2 separate signals at the same time through a single serial port. To resolve this, I attempted to trick the computer by using a virtual COM port splitter. This allowed one COM port to be divided into multiple virtual instances so that both pirates' servo data could be sent through the same port. Unfortunately, this approach failed because the servo board itself could only receive data through one port at a time. The issue was not sending multiple signals simultaneously, but receiving them to then send out individually to the pirates. These are sending and receiving boards, which use Cat6 to communicate. However, these are now redundant because of the previous issues. As a result, the final solution was to give each pirate its own servo board and onboard computer. This allows each pirate to be triggered independently and run its routine without interfering with the others. The first application I use is Track School. Track School is used to record and playback motion of the servos to build the animatronic routine, eventually which I import into VSA. First, I must configure the SSC32U communication parameters, like the COM port and baud rate. Then I have to define the servo minimum maximum limits to prevent it from over-rotating. Next, I like to import the pirate's MP3 audio track into Track School so when I record, I can sync the movement events to the audio guests will be hearing. Then I use the Logitech joystick to puppeteer live motion. Some joystick axes control the head tilt and rotation, and the trigger on the front controls the jaw movement. Last, I export the routine as a text file that Track School then compiles the timestamp servo positions and audio for me, which then I import into VSA. Then, to build a complete show, I use Visual Show Automation, or VSA for short. VSA allows me to synchronize all effects like servo motion, DMX, and other things on a unified timeline. When creating events in VSA, there are linear and pulse bars to create different kinds of effects. It's important to note that you must set up the devices in the Settings tab before you can start programming. For lighting control, I use 3-pin DMX lights that are RGB addressed by DMX signals. These are quite easy to program, and each channel controls a certain amount of red, green, and blue to create different colors. For fog, every fog machine is different. Most higher-end fog machines have DMX ports, and I'm using the Rockville machine because it was the cheapest that I could find with DMX. Each channel does something different though. One controls fog, some control lights, others control output levels of the fog, and even timers. It's important to check your unit's manual before setting up the device. I made sure to time the pulse bars to coordinate fog bursts with the cannon fire sequence. For pneumatics, I use a DMX dimmer switch which controls the solenoid to release compressed air. This is used to simulate the cannon fire. I made sure to time this precisely with the audio and fog for a realistic impact. With audio, lighting, servos, fog, and air, this prop is one of my most immersive I've ever built. This project challenged me to integrate mechanical design, electrical systems, software animation, and show-level timing into one cohesive effect. It's one of my favorite builds, and it's a perfect example of why I love engineering, taking an idea and making it move, speak, and feel alive. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me, consider subscribing or follow me on Instagram at BeauHaunt. I also linked my website in the description below. I have lots more behind the scenes content on all of my other major projects coming soon, so you definitely don't want to miss out. See you guys in the next one.